Hey everyone, and welcome back to High Energy. I'm Esteban Gast, and today we're diving into a topic that impacts all of us, but especially communities like those here in Southern California. We're talking environmental justice. It's an issue that brings together conversations about health, equality, and the environment. Today, we're joined by Veronica Padilla-Campos, the Executive Director of Pacoima Beautiful, an organization dedicated to creating a healthy, safe, and sustainable San Fernando Valley. Veronica, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me this lovely morning.
Wait, I was reading on the website that Pacoima Beautiful was started by like 5 frustrated mothers. Yeah, can you tell me that? I started reading that and I was like, this is like a movie. I was like getting chills just reading about this.
Yeah, we started just as a beautification committee, part of a larger initiative, and that initiative went away. But these 5 moms were like, we can't go away. We are just tired of seeing all these bulky items everywhere, lack of tree canopies. And they're like, we have to be a nonprofit. And they did. And so, yeah, and it was very diverse too. The moms were very diverse. So, they're Jewish, Baptist, Catholic, African-American, white, Latinas. It was wonderful. It's beautiful.
And it was literally, they like saw trash on the ground and were like, someone's got to do something. And then they were like, wait, it should just be us.
More than trash. I mean, they were seeing televisions, couches, mattresses, just like an incredible amount of bulky items everywhere that just weren't being collected. And this was not okay.
That's so good. Okay, can we go back to the basics? If you can like help us define environmental justice. What is environmental justice? What is the movement of environmental justice? Who are we like talking about when we think about environmental justice?
I would say my definition as an urban planner, environmental justice is really allocating resources to our community to ensure that they're able to thrive in healthy communities and there's equity in the distribution of those resources. I don't know if everybody would define it that way, but that's sort of the way I think about it, making sure that we're getting what we deserve to be able to live in a healthy and clean and safe community.
Okay, Veronica, so we're talking about allocation of resources. Can you help me? Can we dig into that? Like, how are you defining resources? To me, I hear resources, I think financial, but also we started the conversation talking about trash, right? So there's also like resources, like public resources in terms of cleaning up trash. How are you defining resources?
So like resources, meaning we have access to city services, right? We have access to new technology. We have a voice when different decisions are being made. We have access to good public transportation, good housing, access to clean air, access to clean water, all that environmental stuff that really leads to a better quality of life. And so that's what we're looking for to ensure that our residents have access to. And we give them a platform too to be able to advocate for that, because these sort of, your other question was like, who are the communities that are most affected? And it's normally communities of color, lower income communities that sort of bear the brunt of these injustices and sort of bearing that brunt for the rest of the city or other more affluent communities.
Sometimes there's this word with environmental justice that's like environmental racism. Can you talk about that? Like, obviously there's communities that need more allocation of resources. Mm-hmm. How does that happen? Is that just...
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you walk us through that?
Sure. So that's sort of just like this disinvestment that have happened in particular communities where they think folks won't vote, won't speak up, will sort of tolerate it because they're afraid of maybe there's an immigration issue, maybe there's a language issue, maybe there's just, they don't have time to be able to get involved and advocate. But we're trying to change that, right? We are making it easy for our communities to be involved, for us to hear them out. And if we're able to be their advocates and be their voice, so many times this is really hard work and it's hard to get listened to and change. But I think when we get this this charge from our community when we see little victories or when we see their hopes in us and we're able to kind of move things forward. This investment that happens in community and sort of has the snowball effect of things becoming worse and worse for communities. So.
Can you share some of those recent victory that you're like, we're celebrating victories?
Victories, they come small, but you must celebrate them all because, we have not reached environmental justice in our communities just yet, right? But you have to be able to celebrate the small victories. So when we're able to build a sidewalk garden and it starts flourishing, but not only that, we build a new community group that volunteers and maintains it, and they start seeing the fruits. It's when we build open pocket parks, and be able to offer a place for community to have a birthday party, or just be able to escape the heat, under a tree. We recently took some folks to Mono Lake for a camping trip, right? To take them to a new environment. And these are older folks. And it just gave us chills when they would say things like, I'll never see this again in my life. Thank you for giving me this experience. This is not something that we see in our urban homes, right? To me, that was a victory, and that's why we do what we do. Or we just had a Day of the Dead celebration where we bring in discussions about building community and resiliency and things like that. And it's great to see see community come out and participate and get to know neighbors, because this is what we strive to do, is build these strong ties that can later help advocate for each other for a better, neighborhood on different things.
Can you, at like a high level, let's say someone you're fighting for, I love this thought of public parks or these open spaces that you're talking about, especially because people can throw birthday parties and there's nothing better than a park birthday. It's the greatest.
Right.
And then you walk up and people have balloons and you're like, look, especially in a park where there's a lot of other park birthdays, it's the best. You're just like looking for your little slice of joy and whimsy. Okay, someone comes to you and they go, or you decide that this is an issue that you want to tackle. What's like high level? What would be the process for you to advocate for that? Are you going to the government? Are you going to community groups? Are you going rogue and saying, you know what, we're just going to beautify this ourselves? Like, how do you think about those systems and levers of change?
We do a little bit of all of that. Our garden, our Jardín Pacoima, this was a street that was normally people from other communities would come and dump construction material. And so we decided we were going to clean it up and build a garden. And I'll be honest, I was telling my staff, you guys are crazy. It's not going to survive a year, if that. But one Earth Day in 2019, we got over 100 people that came out and we cleaned it up. We built these raised beds and planted all these trees. And 2024, and it's thriving garden with no water source, mind you. Okay, people come and put water in our barrels, and we use that to water every day. People come with their milk jugs, and it's just so beautiful and inspiring to see them activate themselves to see these beautiful spaces thrive.
That's so good.
And I love to be proven wrong by my community, right? So now others are telling us, can we do more? How can you help us do this in our community? And I think that's the love that we have in the work that we do, is seeing that we're sort of the ones that get us to a certain point, but it's really the community that sees it through. We have something called Mercado Pacoima too, where we collect fruits and herbs from people's homes, right? So we don't see food waste, and there's so much need for food and fresh food and whatnot. And so our youth and our adults, we go to people's homes and we collect it, and once a month we distribute it to those that need it. And it's just such a great vibe. We even now have like an herb section, and Don Julio will tell you, this is for your tummy and this is so you can sleep. And this is, and it's just so beautiful, and it's all run by our volunteers, our community members. So that's what to us is like fighting this environmental racism, this environmental injustice, to demonstrate the strength of our community.
Yeah.
and their ability to create change.
I love the specific example of Mercado Pacoima. That's so great. I think about that when I'm walking around. My wife and I have a little garden, and we have a ton of Swiss chard. And I'm gonna bring you some because we have so much.
And it grows so fast, honey.
They grow so fast. And so we have a little box in front of our house that's like, please take chard. And you know what's so funny is people weren't taking them a little. And then she was like, we have to make it look good. So she tied twine, like little string, pretty little string around them. And people were taking bunches. And it was so funny. I was like, this is the most interesting like human psychology that people, I think they knew. They're like, I can take this many. I maybe before they didn't know.
You made it easy for them, and you welcome them. You know, that makes a difference. And I think that's why Mercado works so well too, because we really make it like not a party, but you know, it's a big celebration where people are welcome to come and take what they need. And we talk about, you know, bringing your reusable bag and talking about a waste, you know, where we making sure you're composting and that sort of stuff. So everything we do, we bring this discussion about the environment and taking care of the environment and how we can be better stewards. So yeah, it all makes sense in our head.
Just trust us; it makes sense.
All makes sense.
How much are you talking about with the people that you're working with, or even in your organization, between that intersection of, you know, hey, here's something that's really good for the environment, and here is clearly like a system failure, right? Like why is there less healthy food? Why are there food deserts? Things like that, right? Even if we go to that example, like how much are you clearly stating, hey, this is discrimination, or this is an inequity or inequality, and here's how it pairs up? Or I guess that's the question.
I always say like it's important to make sure our community gets upset, right? They're pissed off about something that they want to change. They should not be okay with seeing trash in their neighborhood. They should not be okay with having to go elsewhere to enjoy a park or to buy groceries that are healthy. Like, no, this is something we need to demand to be here. We deserve nice things too, because there's also that argument, like why put a park? Is this gonna be it's not gonna be taken care of? And I very much against that. We deserve it, and we do know how to take care of things. And so we always tie in, like, if there's lead in our homes, that leads to kids getting sick, right? They'll ingest the lead, and then they start having educational issues or learning disabilities, and then they do bad in school, and then, you know, they just can't progress. If there's no parks in our community or open space, we have the obesity issue. So a lot of health concerns there. If there's bad air quality, we have kids with asthma, and then they don't get to go to school. They miss a lot of school days, or they don't have the proper health care. They can't afford it. That also leads into like just the disinvestment in our youth. So it's all sort of tied in, right? If our environment is not healthy, as individuals, we can't be healthy. Because it's hard to get involved with environmental issues, right? It's not sexy. It's not like top of mind. Folks have so many things to be worried about. But when they start connecting how their health is tied to, you know, that auto body shop across the street, they start making those connections and seeing, I have to work to ensure that they're following the rules, or that I get them moved, because it's not healthy for it to be across the street from my home or across the street from a school or whatnot. So we really strive to make those connections, and we need to make those connections in order to help people understand why it's important to stay involved.
Yeah.
And people are smart. They get it. They get it. You know, they come to an event or two and this is why. And then there's so many other benefits to getting involved.
Veronica, what are some of the ways that you're seeing like the climate crisis, right? The urgency of the climate crisis impact people in your community right now?
You know, this summer, I think the heat issue in this community really impacted me on a personal level, because I have a new baby, and she was being cared for here in Pacoima, and she's a renter, and she didn't have air conditioning. And how can I just say, you must get air conditioning? You know, my daughter's here. And she was caring for 3 other kids. If you remember, it was like 112 or for straight weeks. And it was very real to me on how not everybody has access to air conditioning. I got her a mobile air conditioning, and she was even scared to turn that on because she was scared of how much she was going to have to pay. And I think that's a real concern for many of our community members, is having to decide whether they get to pay the bills or have AC, pay the bill, or be able to pay the rent or something. Like, these are real issues to a lot of our community members. And it's because we have a really poor tree canopy here in our community, because we don't have enough open space, because, energy prices are so high in communities like ours, where we should have access to more solar panels in our homes. And even when solar panels do exist, maybe the rooftops aren't up to code and need to get that fixed. Or maybe they have an illegal dwelling unit behind their home, and, they can't afford the city to come inspect it, because then that'll be taken down. There's just so many things that are impacting our residents to be able to, to be able to have a good quality of life. And heat is a big thing that we've been talking about here, advocating to ensure that the department knows the challenges of our community, finding incentives for our community residents, just helping them understand ways to conserve, or helping them apply for incentives and whatnot. So there's just so much that goes on. And there is a real urgency in making sure that people, get these resources that I talked about early on, the allocation of these resources to be able to be safe and healthy.
In the examples that you just shared, like, are you listed a bunch of very meaningful and also very frustrating things, like lack of tree canopy, lack of solar, lack of, the sort of clean energy solutions that are out there, or older clean energy solutions that aren't as effective or efficient or much more expensive. Like, how do you think about that? Or are you and your organization tackling some of that and thinking through that? Again, that feels to me like that intersection of everything, of where environmental justice lives, of like, why is this community not getting these resources? Why is it not allocated? And it's actively hurting our community, and it's getting worse with the climate crisis.
We're definitely thinking about those things. And as we're doing advocacy about one thing, we learn about other challenges that we strive to address. So, like, for example, we brought an electric car share program for people, and it was launched right during COVID. And folks were saying, no one's going to use it because they don't have credit cards here in the Northeast Valley. And it turned out that was not the case. People, in fact, do have a lot of spending money on credit cards in the Northeast Valley. The challenges, though, however, was that people didn't have valid driver's license, and they needed help in fixing that. So we were able to bring the Assemblywoman's office in and support us with that. So, there's always something, and it's through our engagement and asking people and being out in community where we find the solution or the problems, and then we can strive to find solutions. But we always make sure that whatever project we work on is not something we came up with, but it's something that our community members have asked, our youth or our adults, that really talk to us about those challenges. And then we work together to find those solutions for them. Like I said, it's all tied one way or the other.
If we zoom out, we're seeing people in power really deny the impacts of climate change, and like intentionally or unintentionally, probably intentionally, overlook the voices of the communities that are affected by environmental hazards. Why do you think this happens? How does that impact the work you're doing? How do you think that impacts environmental justice as a whole?
There's always been these naysayers, and that doesn't stop the work that we do. We have a responsibility to our community members because we're from these communities ourselves. And we have this great privilege to be working towards environmental justice. We have lived experiences that tell us that the environmental racism exists. we've had families impacted by this, that no matter what others are saying, it is our responsibility to continue the advocacy, to continue pushing for projects and programs to improve these impacts, to make sure that everybody is aware of these injustices so we can work together to change it, to ensure that we get the right elected officials and policymakers in the offices to make these changes. To maybe the people that we work with ourselves become these leaders in these different tables to make sure that we bring attention to our work. So, regardless of what those other naysayers are saying because of some, financial interest or whatever it is, our lived experience tell us otherwise. And so the work for us continues. And we're getting really good at it. So we're not going to stop.
That's beautiful and hopeful.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. You're like, the work continues and we know the experiences we're having and no one can deny that.
Yeah.
Are you ready for some listener questions?
Yes.
All right, let's do it. So these are listener questions, which I'm so thrilled about. The first one is from Lisa in Woodland Hills, who wants to know, do people have a legal right to environmental justice? If so, how can they exercise that right?
Yes. Everybody has a right to environmental justice. Everybody has a right to clean air, clean water, safe housing, all that stuff. And there's regulators, and it's their responsibility to ensure that they're regulating to all, not to just some. We have legislators that also have to be legislating for all and not just some. And it's our responsibility to ensure that they're doing that and that we are able to put the right folks in office or whatnot to make that happen. And also just as individuals, that we understand what environmental justice is, what environmental racism looks like, and for us to not perpetuate any of that and support those that can't.
If we're talking about, hey, it's important for individuals to understand this, what are some resources or how would someone start to think about this if the term environmental justice, this might be one of the first times they've heard it?
Like, where are places that people can get involved in? I think if there's community meetings in your neighborhood, or if you want to go visit other neighborhoods and really, go to other neighborhoods and invest in those restaurants, right? And just be supportive there. Go to community meetings, go to volunteer at Pacoima Beautiful and other EJ organizations like that, community cleanups that we do, and just get to know the residents that live here. I think also at home, we can create change, right? We can, don't litter, conserve water, conserve energy, be an example for the next generation, right? Show love to your neighbor and don't waste. Try not to use as much plastic. There's so much that you can also do as an individual if you don't have the time to get involved in organizations like ours. But yeah, there's different ways to create that change. My husband said that once he got married to me, he saw the world differently, right? He thought about that piece of gum wrapper, where it was placed, and, thought about the stuff he purchased in the grocery store that was in plastic. And, or even when we have parties, as annoyed as his family gets, I don't use paper products. We have reusable plates and stuff, and yeah, just knowing that we all have an impact and we can all create a change. And in the Northeast Valley, we have 13 landfills. They're not all active, but even the inactive ones are spewing out stuff into the environment that are affecting us immediately, but it also has an impact for the rest of the community because the air will blow stuff around. So you have to think of environmental justice not as something that happens over there, but you have to think of it as like We all contribute to it, and we all have to do our part.
I love that this it's like, it's not happening to someone else. It's not us versus that. It's like everyone is sort of them versus some of these structures. I realized this, we've got one more listener question, excuse me. And I realized I kind of asked it as a follow-up, but I still want to ask it again because I still think this is one of the biggest, right? If we're talking about like tangible takeaways, key points, someone's listening, they go, this is really interesting. This question's from Miranda in Chatsworth, who's wondering what steps can individuals take if they want to get involved or make a difference on environmental justice issues? I think that's such a big question. What would you say is like, I know you mentioned some of this, what would you say is like a first step? Or maybe someone who comes to one of your meetings the first time and they're starting to see the world differently. Like, what is a first step for someone to start thinking and existing in this environmental justice world?
Well, Chatsworth is kind of close to Pacoima, so I would welcome Miranda,
Miranda,
to
get over here.
Come over to Pacoima Beautiful and attend one of our meetings. We do something called the People's Collaborative, where people learn about the issues, right? So they learn to give it a name when they see, the differences between one community and another. This is what we mean by environmental justice or environmental racism. This is what we're fighting for. So I would encourage folks to really get involved with us to be able to understand what they're seeing, give it a name, so they're then able to be better advocates. But in terms of like I was saying, what people can do on a day-to-day or right now is, start thinking of environmental justice or that you can contribute to eliminating environmental injustices in what you do every day. And sort of like the examples that I gave about conserving water and energy and, being a good example, a good steward to Mother Earth and respecting your community for the betterment of everybody else. And be a better neighbor.
I love it. Yeah. Sometimes that, fighting against an unfair system, a system that, creates a term like environmental justice, because we have to force the powers that be to allocate resources, like you had said, just starts at loving your neighbor. That's really, really beautiful.
I hope I'm not being too cheesy, but it's so hard, the things that you encounter every day, the things you hear from community members, the day-to-day struggles of folks, that you really have to lead with love and with like understanding and compassion, because it can be a lot, and and again, environmental justice is not just here. It's so much, and it's for all of us, and we are all responsible for this one earth that we have, right? So I hope that our new administration doesn't do too much damage, because I know they don't believe in climate change. I understand that last time they were in office, they didn't let EPA say climate change. But fortunately, there's really great people that work in this field that were able to continue to do the work. And that's what I mean, like, we can't let things like that prevent us.
We do the work no matter what. I love it. Veronica, thank you so much for joining us, sharing your expertise and your perspective with us. Today's conversation really highlights how environmental justice is not just about like protecting our planet. It's about ensuring fair treatment and support for all of our community members, especially those who are hit hardest by environmental issues.
We're always happy to meet with people and chat and take toxic tours, is what we call them. Reach out to us.
I love it. Thank you again for joining us and for all the work you do to make Los Angeles a healthier, safer, more just place. Thanks, Veronica. Really appreciate it.
It was fun. Thank you.
To everyone listening, don't forget to check out the show notes for the links to the resources we mentioned. And we love the questions. Keep the questions coming. You can send questions to highenergypodcast@socalren.org. Thank you for tuning in to this season of High Energy. Until next time, stay cool and keep making a difference.